There has been much discussion within the field service sector regarding the gig economy. Ours is a world that has always been one in which the ability to calmly put out fires as they arise and to be able to respond both effectively and efficiently are the hallmarks of good field service management. Even as we move towards a more proactive style of service in general, the need for a well-oiled field service machine that can handle break-fix requests will still be necessary. In fact, in a world of proactive service, where the majority of work becomes routine maintenance, the ability to tap into a casual workforce with a baseline skill set capable of handling such day-to-day tasks can be crucial to free up the necessary internal resources to handle the more complex off-schedule repair calls. However, there is one aspect of the discussion that has been consistently overlooked. Generally, conversations around the gig economy have centered around the millennial generation and increasingly Generation Z. However, in field service in particular, the gig economy sits just as comfortably, if not more so, with an older generation, a generation of engineers who are approaching semi-retirement, these more mature professionals, perhaps looking for a more settled life with less time on the road, and a number of ex-military professionals. Why the field service sector needs the gig economy. The pressure on field service companies is perhaps greater than it ever has been, as we as a society embrace an everything now culture, a culture where on-demand is the new norm, and one in which time has become perhaps the greatest single commodity of all. Companies like Deliveroo, Uber and Amazon have raised the benchmark when it comes to what is possible, both in terms of operational efficiency and customer convenience. This has led to a surge in customer expectations. We now demand that the services we use are intuitive, convenient and affordable. And while this was a phenomenon that emerged within the business-to-consumer world, it is one that has also seeped into the business-to-business realm as well, as the lines between the two become continually blurred. The reality, of course, is that field service is a complex beast with many moving parts. It is obviously harder to get a skilled engineer to a job than it is to get a taxi driver. There are simply less of them available, especially if you only have the limited pool of your own internal resources. Yet the customer cares very little for the reasons why you cannot meet their demands, only that you can't. It is of course an unfair expectation. Some may even go as far as to call it unrealistic even. But in the world of the experience economy, where service standards and rapid responses are becoming increasingly linked with our top-line revenue streams, it is one that we as service providers have to face up to. It is one we have to adapt to. What makes this more challenging is the simultaneous increase in internal expectations of field service delivery. With the rise of digital transformation projects, improvements can be made across the whole service delivery cycle. Indeed, technology is undoubtedly an enabler in allowing field service organizations to streamline their processes. However, while modern field service management systems can help drive efficiencies in all manner of aspects of field service, the fact remains that field service by its very definition is inherently a people-centric sector. We have yet to be able to replace the most dexterous tool at our disposal, a pair of human hands, with industrial automation, and it is unlikely that we ever will. And so it is to the gig economy savvy field service companies are turning. And beyond the headlines of millennials on bikes, there is an increasingly mature pool of experienced gig economy workers who are ready and able to fill in the gaps in your existing field workforce. They are not a replacement for your existing team, but an addition, with the freelancer and the internal employee working side by side in what is termed the blended workforce. Debunking the myths of the gig economy. Having outlined the growing case for the field service sector to embrace the gig economy in a previous video, let us take a moment to bust some of the myths surrounding the conversation. Misconception 1. The gig economy is just for young kids on bikes. If you look at the various gig work platforms that are available, it quickly becomes clear that many are targeted at workers with specific levels of expertise. When we think of the gig economy, we often automatically think of platforms such as Uber or TaskRabbit. But the truth is the gig economy is a broad and wide spectrum. For example, at the other end of the spectrum, high-level management consultants have essentially always been part of the gig economy, long before the term was ever coined. In fact, over 2/3 of the gig economy are over 30. When we look at field service engineers, successful platforms have emerged such as FieldNation and WorkMarket that have allowed field service organizations to effortlessly tap into a contingent labor market full of qualified and experienced service engineers. Misconception 2. The gig economy is only utilised by certain types of company. Actually, 40% of companies expect that gig workers will become an increasing part of their workforce. Many businesses are clearly seeing the value in using freelance workers to meet their staffing needs. Companies like Swiss telco giant Swisscom, for example, are rapidly expanding their teams and building new service revenue streams by utilising an abundance of gig workers. This is a trend we've seen increasing in field service, and it offers a win-win for gig workers and field service companies alike, and experts predict that this trend will only continue. With more field service companies hiring gig workers, this will only serve to drive the acceptance of the gig economy further, bringing more experienced engineers to the gig economy market. Misconception 3. Gig workers are just waiting for a proper job. There is a common misconception that gig economy work is a means to an end, whilst workers seek out a more traditional form of full-time employment. In fact, research by Forbes shows that only 20% of freelancers would prefer full-time employment. Despite scare stories that position gig workers as vulnerable from exploitation and low wages, the reality is very different. And the truth is, most gig workers wouldn't choose full-time employment even if it was available to them. In fact, 45% of the respondents to the Forbes survey stated they would opt to work independently and state that they would seek to acquire new clients in order to meet their financial goals. All of this is noteworthy because as a group, freelancers do tend to work longer hours at less pay than their employee counterparts. At the same time, they tend to state that they work on more interesting projects and enjoy the flexibility that gig work provides to them, including being able to work from home and spending more quality time with their family. Overall, this could reflect a shift in priorities among workers and has been aligned with the societal change of the workforce as boomers retire and millennials replace them. However, further study of the available data would indicate that this is in fact a universal preference that transcends generational outlooks. The benefits of the older gig worker in field service. So let's take a look at why the gig economy can be of benefit for both seasoned engineers and for field service organisations themselves. Flexibility. The frequent travel of a field service engineer can be an exciting life for a younger worker. Indeed, this variety is something that field service organisations are starting to leverage as they seek to employ from the millennial labour pool. However, it is a work-life balance that is perhaps less attractive for the engineer who has settled down and doesn't want to spend time away from their family quite so often. Equally, the older engineer, who is perhaps entering into semi-retirement, may not want to, or be capable of, climbing up pylons or squeezing down cubby holes every day. However, their technical skills can still be leveraged in a less demanding role. Additionally, as our society adapts to newer thinking towards work, the entrepreneurial approach is becoming increasingly common amongst older workers, as they have the necessary diligence to continue to seek out the work needed to provide them with financial support, but relish the freedom of being able to set their own agenda. Experience on tap. For the field service organisation, the ability to tap into a pool of experienced engineers on demand allows them to minimise the risks of unnecessary costs, while still being able to meet any peaks in service requirements. Whilst this is of course true of any gig worker, regardless of age, field service companies are seeking out more seasoned engineers for a number of reasons. Experienced with the assets. The engineer that has been there, done it and got the t-shirt is likely to hit the first time fix rates. Not are they only likely to have vast experience on multiple assets within the industry segment, but also their experience will shine when it comes to fault identification as well. This is crucial considering that no fault found is often one of the overriding biggest causes for costly second visits. Good under pressure. When every second of downtime is costing your client money, the front line of the service cycle can be a very high pressure environment. Under such pressure, mistakes can be made, which can be costly for both you and your client. The experienced engineer is likely to be able to draw on a well of experience to help them get the job done as efficiently as possible. Indeed, this is the reason that so many field service organisations actively seek out ex-military personnel. Good with the customers. Of course, if the customer problem is resolved nice and quickly, they are likely to be happy. However, a confident, well-mannered engineer can be the link in solidifying their relationship with your organisation and potentially paving the way for renewing or even upgrading service contracts in the future. The gig economy engineer doesn't need to be part of your sales process to achieve this. but they are the representative of your brand, and the quality of their interaction with your customers will impact your sales team's conversations with them at some point in the future. The experienced engineer is more likely to understand the wider business processes and be comfortable engaging with customers while also naturally carrying a more authoritative tone. The importance of customer perception. An important question remains when it comes to the gig economy. What about the perception of the gig worker in the eyes of the consumer? In an era where the service call plays a significant part of the company's reputation and brand, is it wise to hand that responsibility to someone who is not part of your corporate family? There is a certain amount of trepidation amongst some companies around utilizing the gig economy for this exact reason. However, ultimately, if the engineer is on an emergency break-fix call and gets the customer up and running, realistically, will your customer really care whether that engineer is a direct employee or a gig worker? Probably not. Similarly, if the engineer is performing fairly routine preventative maintenance, then will it really matter if the engineer is a gig worker or is internally employed? Again, in reality, the customer is unlikely to have too much of a concern. However, there is a potential negative impact to a brand if it becomes apparent that the company is sending out what could be viewed as cheaper, less qualified labour to maintain their customers' assets. However, there are a number of ways in which this can be overcome. Employ in the gig economy like you would for your own team. Hire excellence. One suggestion could be leveraging the natural gravitas and authority that more experienced engineers are able to bring to the table. Of course, we are not suggesting here that an organisation employ based on an age criterion. That would obviously be unfair, illegal, and limit your potential reach into the gig economy market. However, it could be wise to set a slightly higher experience requirement level for your jobs than is actually needed. This would have the benefit of ensuring that each of your gig workers is overqualified for the work they're going to undertake on your behalf. This may be a bit more expensive than the regular approach to harnessing the gig economy, but it is still cheaper than it would be to develop and retain your own workforce, and you would be likely to see high-level first-time fix rates, which is not only good for your own P&L, negating any additional expenses, but perhaps more importantly, would allow you to maintain a strong brand reputation for your service operation whilst leveraging the gig economy. This, however, is just one potential suggestion, but there is one thing which is a simple necessity required in order to make sure you're able to successfully leverage the gig economy while still retaining the trust and loyalty of your customers. That is to present a consistent and unified look across all your communications with your customers, regardless of whether they are internal workers or third-party workers. Embrace the technology that powers your organization and delights your customers. It is essential that from your customer's perspective, that they still have clear visibility and a route of communication that is seamless. This is where technology such as Locals can play a major role in facilitating field service organizations to truly harness the power of the gig worker market. In fact, moving towards an on-demand service model doesn't have to be a huge operational or organizational change. By using the power of location technology, such as that which the Local solution has been designed to maximize, you can offer jobs to available engineers in the area with the right skill set, delivering a flexible schedule for employees and a seamless on-demand experience for consumers who are demanding more services which work around them. If you would like to know more about this topic, Field Service News has produced an exclusive white paper in partnership with Locals that is available for fieldservicenews.com subscribers in our premium content library now. If you have yet to subscribe, join 30,000 of your field service management professional peers and do so by clicking the button that says Access Paper. If you're not a subscriber, it will simply take you to our subscription page. But for now, thanks for watching and we'll see you again soon. Take care.